Okay. Okay. Good evening, children. Without much wastage of time, actually, we started with industries. I think we were doing the industrial policy resolutions, where I talked about 3 industrial policy resolutions. And then I think the last one I was doing 1977 industrial resolution I was doing, I think. So I'll continue with the share screening as such, and then we'll continue. Any doubts till now, children? Is it okay? The lesson is okay, going on well, I hope.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope.
Kindly interact with the teachers so that we will get to know what is on your mind, how far you are understanding.
Children,
another 10 days we will have one more test. Yeah, syllabus I will give today, not next Saturday. That next Saturday we will have.
Okay. Children, you should interact, children, because you are all going to write the civils. No, you should be more interactive. You should know the concepts very well. You should also add to the situations, because you are all going to be the in the administration, means you should know so many things. It's not just your 10th class examination or so. So when you are going for civil, children, be very interactive. You should be able to talk so many things, know so many things. You have to add so many things.
There should be discussions about it. Yeah, about in Shamla ma'am's class, there used to be huge debates.
Arguments only for my
arguments,
class.
Debates.
Children used to fight with me for everything. But those students are not there now, Shailaja. Hardly any students now.
Yeah,
okay.
Sneha, then Monica. Yeah.
How much they used to fight with me. Monica, though, she used to fight with me like anything. I can never forget those students.
All well settled now.
Good, good. Yeah.
Thanks to your teaching.
Okay. So these are the things we were talking about, children. I think I was talking about license Raj. Can anyone tell me, anyone just remember what is the license Raj I was talking about? Quota, license Raj. This is a very important word which existed in India. Even now also, whenever they talk about, they will use this word called as the license quota Raj. What is this license quota Raj? Is that, as I told you, that suppose if an industry has to be set up, first they have to get a license from the government to set up an industry. Suppose if they want to increase the production also, they have to get a license. Okay. Then if they want to produce 2-3 goods, they want to add or increase the goods, that also they have to take a license. Suppose if they want to set up a new branch, also they have to take a license. This is where we call it as license Raj, it was called as. Unless they get the license, they cannot go forward. Second thing is quota system. What is this quota system? Is that, as I told you, that imports and exports. That means they made a list, the government made a list that only these goods should be imported, only these goods should be exported. You cannot import, you cannot export anything. So it was a controlled system. That's why it is called as the license quota Raj system, it was called as. So this existed till 1991 as such. So just we will talk about 1977. So licenses, as I told you, that suppose if they wanted to do, why did they do all this? I'll tell you the other point also. Why did they do is that there were only few industrial houses who were ready to set up the industries. Whenever it is required, they are ready to do that. First is to stop the monopolization. What is monopolization? That means a single industrialist or industrial house trying to take control of the market. That is wrong. You cannot ask one particular person to take over the market. What will happen is that that particular person will have control over the market. He will produce the goods as he likes. He will fix the prices as he likes. So that cannot be allowed. So monopolization is single industry producing the market, selling the goods. So the customer has no other option but he has to buy from him only. That is wrong. That means the customers will be at a problem. So that is, they have to stop the monopolization. Second one is that they have to see that there is no regional disparities. Now, for example, if an industrial house has set up an industry in Gujarat, for example, in Ahmedabad or somewhere else, they will try to set up another industry there only. They will not go into the interior areas. That means only the cities and the towns will be industrialized. The region, that the interior areas or the backward areas will be left like that. So the license system was meant for two aspects. One is to stop the monopolization. Second one is to see that there are no regional disparities as such. These are the two important concepts where we call it as economic balanced development was required. Am I clear? So this was done to counter the regional disparities. Regional means only certain states developing, certain states not developing. Then you cannot call it as development at all. Then the next one is 1977. I'll tell you one incident here, children. From 1952, we had the first elections, general elections. From there till 1977, almost it was only the Congress that was ruling over the country. Now you all know that what happened in 1977. Can anyone tell me what happened in 1977? Which was also called as the dark era of Indian politics. Yes, Dylan. General knowledge.
No idea.
Huh? Emergency was declared by Indira Gandhi at that time. You know what is emergency? Emergency means where they will remove they will take away all the fundamental rights. The government can do as they like. The citizens cannot question them. That was imposed in 1977 by Indira Gandhi. That is still today considered to be the darkest period of Indian politics. Okay. So after that emergency period, for the first time, Congress was defeated and Janata Party came into existence. Now, the Janata Party is nothing but the today's BJP. In those days, it was called as Janata Party. Janata Party got divided to number of parties. We have so many parties in Janata Party, but at that time, it was only called as Janata Party. Who were the stalwarts of Janata Party at that time? Where mainly we talk about his name is. Not able to get his name. Morarji Desai, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, then you have Chandrasekhar, then you had Babu Jagjeevan Ram, Charan Singh. Okay, all these were the stalwarts at that time who came to power. So Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister in 1977. So the Janata government, okay, announced its industrial policy through a statement in the parliament. So whenever a new party comes into existence, immediately they will declare their economic policy. So what was the economic policy of Janata Party? They wanted the promotion of cottage and small industries widespread in rural areas and the small towns. Because if you talk about cottage and small industries, they can be set up in the rural areas. Listen, Jai Prakash Narayan was the actual founder of Janata Party. Jai Prakash Narayan was there at that time. So Jai Prakash Narayan, Morarji Desai, then Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Charan Singh, then Babu Jagjeevan Ram. These were all the important people at that particular period of time. Okay, so because I'll forget the name, that's why I go. So what was the main underlining statement for the Janata Party is that the promotion of cottage and small scale industries to be set up in the rural areas so that there will be industries in the rural areas also. They wanted to classify into three groups the cottage industries, that is cottage and household sector, tiny sector and small scale industries. So in 1977, this was the classification that was given for the cottage and the small scale industry. What are they? Cottage and household sector, you call them as the cottage industries. Then you call it as a tiny sector, which has less amount of money, and also the small scale industries, which are also having a lesser amount of money with lesser labor, lesser capital, lesser machinery as such. Okay. Then the 1977 industrial policy, different areas for large scale industrial sector, that is basic industries, capital goods industries, high technology industries, and other industries outside the list of the reserved items from the small scale sector. So these will be called as the large scale industries, and these will be called as that means they have separated the industries, which will be called as the small scale industries and which will be called as the large scale industries. So they made it very clear that the small scale industries and the cottage industries will be restricted to the smaller areas in the town so that there will be development over there also. Next, it also restricted the scope of large business houses so that no unit of the small business group acquired a dominant and monopolistic position in the market. The same policy here also. They never wanted a single industrial house to play a dominant role in the market and monopolize the market as such. Then it also put emphasis on reducing the labor unrest. What is labor unrest? Is that what are the conditions for labor unrest? Is that first thing is that they are not getting the job. There is no security of the job. There are no proper wages paid to them. There are no working conditions. There are no compensations. These are all called as the reasons for unrest. Why do the laborers strike? Is that these are the main conditions. So they wanted to reduce this labor unrest because if the laborers go on strike, the production will be suffering a lot. So the governments have to take a lot of care for the workers, their wages, their service conditions, everything the government has to take into consideration. So it encourages the workers' participation in the management from the shop floor level to the board level. That means right from the working conditions to the top level. That means if the management is taking the decision, one of them should be the representative over there so that to see that whatever decision the top level management is taking, that will be for the welfare of the workers and not going against the workers as such. Am I clear? A labor unrest and workers participation in the management. Yes, children? Say yes or
Please
no at least.
respond.
You have to respond, children.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, fine. If you don't want to respond, at least you put a thumbs up or you say, you raise your hand at least. If you don't want to talk, no problem for me. But at least I should know that you are following me. Okay, children? Yeah. Now, but still, the industrial policy was criticized. Why it was criticized is that because of the absence of effective measures to curb the dominant position of large-scale units, and the policy did not envisage any socio-economic transformation of the economy for curbing the role of big business houses and multinationals. That means, in spite of saying that the large business houses will not be allowed, but still the same thing happened here where only the large scale business houses started establishing the industries, and there was no point of the small industrialists gaining a dominant position in the economy. This is the criticism. Though they have taken the steps, still we find that the industries were in the hands of a few business houses in the country. Then comes the industrial policy of 1980. The concept of economic federation raised the efficiency of the public sector to reverse the trend of industrial production of the past 3 years. That means they wanted to increase the efficiency of the public sector. That means all the government companies they wanted to increase and also increase the industrial production also. In our country, even now also, children, the industrial production always keeps fluctuating. Agricultural production is okay, but industrial production always keeps fluctuating. For any economy, the industrial, what happened, any problem? So for any economy, industrial production is very, very important, but this kept changing. So the 1980 industrial policy wanted to correct these particular concepts as such. So reaffirmed its base in monopolies and restrictive trade practices and foreign exchange regulation. And that means they wanted to go back to the monopolies and restrictive trade practices also, and also foreign exchange regulation. And that means they wanted to see that certain extent where the government can interfere, the government can control the free market and see that the big industrial houses will not interfere in all these also. Okay, then comes the revolutionary industrial policy of 1991. Can anyone tell me why did we change the economic policy in 1991? Because already I've explained this. Let me see how much you remember. Why did we introduce a totally revolutionary economic policy in 1991? Why? What happened? Why was the Indian government forced to make this new economic policy? Yes, Shilpa. I have already explained this once. You should be able to tell because this is a very important question, a turning point in the Indian economy. When we talk about it, whether it is economics or whether it is geography, you should be able to know why the Indian government has come up with a new economic policy. If you know, it's okay. Otherwise, don't waste my time. I will repeat again. Do you remember or do you want me to explain? Don't waste the time. It's okay if you don't know, no problem, children. I will teach again. But the thing is, you should know. And I will give you one more suggestion also. Whatever points I'm saying, sometimes, no, what happens is that I may not cover in all the notes. If you feel that this point is nice or good, make a habit of noting down the points. Sometimes, no, when I'm teaching, no, I teach so many points and maybe I may not be able to put them in the notes as such. So quickly note down the points and you can stop me whenever you feel that, okay, this point is nice, I want to note down. Means you please stop me so that I can repeat that point once again. But again, I will not cover those particular points. Yeah. Coming back to new economic policy, can anyone tell me
He
what
was
is new
asking you to
economic
explain
policy?
once again.
Should I explain again?
Yeah.
I'll better explain. Okay. So why did the Indian government introduce a new economic policy? Till then, the public sector was dominant, private sector was given very little importance, but it was a total change in 1991. Why? Because in 1991, the Indian government had money only for 15 days to last. That means totally our money reserves were totally over. We did not have any money, and the money which was there with the Indian government would be lasting only for another 15 days. So, in order to protect the country from dire consequences, the Indian government approached the World Bank. Okay, at that time it was P.V. Narasimha Rao who was the Prime Minister and Manmohan Singh was the Finance Minister at that time. So they approached the World Bank. So when they approached the World Bank asking for a loan of $7.5 billion. This is the amount of money they asked. $7.5 billion of money they have asked as loan from the World Bank. The World Bank was ready to give. It said, we will definitely give you, but only thing is that you have to change your economic policy and you have to open your doors to the economy. I even talked about the LPG also, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody asked me a question, ma'am, is this LPG even now existing? Pearly or Sneha or somebody asked me, if I'm not mistaken. Pearly, you only asked me?
Yes, ma'am.
Now you got it. Now you got it. That is new economic policy. That is the LPG, liberalization, privatization, and the globalization. See, I remember the question also you asked me, but you forgot the concept only, Pali. Huh?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I know who asked me the question also. I remember. See, but you forgot the concept only. Now at least you got it. You got it when I
Yes,
am
yes, ma'am. I
talking
wrote
about.
it down.
You only asked me, ma'am, is that LPG now also existing? You asked me, right? Yeah. So, okay, no problem. What is there in that? Once again, I'll try to tell you all. So, the World Bank asked the government to change its new economic policy by which they have to adopt the policy called as liberalization, privatization, and globalization. What is liberalization? Is that where you remove all the quotas, restrictions, and there will be a free trade, imports and exports. There is no restriction, there is no quota. And you remove all the tariff barriers, you are not putting any taxes on the imports and the exports. Okay, that is called as tariff barriers. That is liberalization. What is privatization? Is that the role of the public sector should be reduced and entirely should be given to the private sector. Only 4 or 5 industries which are of national importance should be under the government. The rest should be under the control of the private sector. What is globalization? Is that having a free trade with all the countries of the world, allowing the MNCs to come and set up their industries in our country. This is what has happened in 1991. This is what we call it as the NEP or the New Economic Policy of 1991. This is considered to be a revolution at that particular period of time and a very bold step taken by the Indian government at that particular period of time. But had not P.V. Narasimha Rao or Manmohan Singh took that particular step, India would not have reached this particular stage today. So we should always think that that was a bold step and it was a correct step that was taken at that particular period of time. And from then onwards, India was able to achieve a lot. That is where today people are having so many jobs. Otherwise, it was only government jobs at that time. People never had any jobs only at all. But now you have an option. There are so many jobs that are available for us. So what was the objective objective was to efficiency, accelerate economic growth. De-reservation of the public sector. Sectors that were earlier exclusively reserved for public sector were reduced. Only certain things like arms and ammunition, atomic energy, minerals, oils, rail transport, and mining was still under the public sector because these are considered to be the most important sectors which cannot be given to the private sector. But after that, once again, now only two sectors are under the sector, that is atomic energy and railway operations are the only two which are there under the public sector. The rest are all under the private sector. Delicensing, abolition of industrial licensing for all projects except for a short list of industries. That means you don't require that strict licensing system except for a few industries like chemical industries or nuclear industries, which are considered to be hazardous industries only for sorry, only for that you require I'm sorry, only for that you require the licensing. Otherwise, you need not require any industries at all. Now, there are only 4 industries at present related to security, strategic, where an industrial license is currently required. What are they? Aerospace, defense equipment. You all know that what is different. Can anyone name a company which is related to defense? It is in Hyderabad. That is DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. DRDO. That is one organization which will be developing all sorts of defense equipment. Okay. Then specified hazardous chemical industries, as I told you that industrial explosives, cigars and cigarettes of tobacco and manufactured tobacco. So these are certain industries where industrial license is still required. Without industrial licensing, without a proper permission, these industries cannot be set up. Disinvestment, government stakes in the public sector enterprises were reduced to enhance. The government has taken away the entire money from the public sector industries. That means if a particular industry or government is able to withdraw the shares more than 52% of its stake from the total capital, then automatically it becomes a private sector. Remember that 52% of the money or shares are withdrawn by the government and sold to the private sector, it becomes a private sector company. This is what is called as disinvestment of the public sector. Then comes liberalization. This was the first time where the government allowed the industries to come to India and invest in the Indian industries also. So 51% of the FDI was allowed. For export tradings, it was 74%. So for export houses, that means the companies can come and invest their money in our country. This is called as foreign direct investment of the foreign exchange reserves, also you call it as. So there are today so many sectors where government allows 100% FDI. Foreign technology agreement is automatic approvals for technology related agreements. Whatever technology you want to import from other countries, immediately you will get the permission. Okay. Then what are the outcomes of the new industrial policies is that this is what I was talking about. The 1991 policy made license, permit, quota, Raj a thing of the past. Now there is no question of license, there is no permit, and there is no quota, Raj. Okay, it attempted to liberalize the economy by removing the bureaucratic hurdles in the industrial growth. What are bureaucratic hurdles? Is the civil services which you are talking now, which you are going to write the examinations, are the bureaucratic. Bureaucracy, you call it as. Bureaucracy is nothing but the civil services. That means to what extent? See, children, still today also, there is a lot of change that has to be brought about in civil services also. Still, we call it as the red tapeism is existing in our country as such. What is a red tapeism is that this bureaucratic or the civil services people, no, they are mostly bound by the rules and regulations. They don't try to change according to the situations. That has to be gone. If that doesn't go, if the procedure is very lengthy, then we will lose it on others. So these are the things that have to be corrected, and they aim to correct this also. Limited role of public sector, that means the government hardly has any role in the public sector. Then easy entry of multinational companies. That is the reason why today we see so many MNCs are there in our country, especially if you are in Bangalore, for example, you know how many MNCs are there. We also have something called as a Silicon Valley also. Bangalore is one of the top IT centers of the country, followed by Hyderabad. How did they come? Because of the 1991 policy. So this resulted in increased competition. Naturally, when more number of industries are there, competition is there. If more number of companies are selling the same products, it will lead to lower prices. That is the reason why today you have a number of products. That means you are spoiled for choice. The customers are getting confused also sometimes with overflow of goods also, we can say. For example, you talk about mobile phones, you have so many mobile phones in the market. When you go to the shop, it becomes very difficult for us. That means increased competition leading to lower prices also. You talk about TVs, you talk about your mobiles, you talk about any electronic gadgets, for example, you have so much of competition that is there as such. So this brought domestic as well as the foreign investment in almost every sector open to the private sector. So today there are so many players, private sector players are there. This policy was also followed by efforts to increase exports like export-oriented units, export processing zones, agri-export zones, special economic zones, and national investment in manufacturing zones. All these benefited the export sector of the country. That means if the companies are exporting through any of these zones, they get some incentives they get. They need not pay the taxes. They need not get the permission. It is very easy for them to continue. Am I clear? That is the main important thing. But what are the limitations also? Stagnation of manufacturing sector. That means they failed to push the manufacturing sector, whose contribution to GDP is stagnated 16% since 1991. The main failure in our country is a manufacturing sector. That is the reason why Modi has introduced a policy called as complete the sentence. In order to improve the manufacturing sector, what are the policies that are introduced by Modi government? Come on, children. It is all related to the current situation. You have to you have to connect the entire concept with the current Atmanirbharta, made in India. All these are the important concepts for development of manufacturing sector. If you are manufacturing everything in our country, we don't depend on anyone. That is what we call it as Atmanirbharta. We talk about made in India. These are all the concepts. Because our manufacturing sector is very slow, in order to push the manufacturing sector's production and contribution to GDP, the government has introduced a policies called as Made in India and Atmanirbharta. You have to connect like that, children, past to present. That is what is the education system is. Yeah, we have to come from the unknown to the known, known to the unknown. That is how you have to connect yourself, children. You should brush up your general knowledge, what is happening. Read newspapers, you have to read. That is what helps you a lot in the education system. Always keep yourself abreast with the what is happening, what are the important things. And you people, when you are preparing for the civils, please read the newspaper. Make it a habit to read the newspaper. Update yourselves. If you don't update, children, you cannot attempt some of the competitive examinations. Yeah. Yes. Next one is we talk about is displacement of the labor. That means because of this, the main reason is the labor suffered today. Most of the MNCs will appoint them on a contract basis. Only for when the project is there, they will appoint. Once the project is there, they are thrown out of the jobs also. This is one of the important things. Focusing attention on liberalization. Okay, consumption-led growth rather than investment or export-led growth. So we are giving more importance to consumption-led growth, that we are asking the people to spend, but we are not investing or we are not trying to export. That means when we manufacture more, then we are trying to export more. That is how you will be able to earn the money as well. So what is the way forward is that they have taken a shift from socialistic pattern to capitalistic system. Then we call it as campaigns such as Make in India, Startup India, well to enhance the business economic system in the country. And then, however, electricity shortages, high prices, credit constraints, high unit labor cost due to labor regulations, This is the most important thing. Political interference and other regulatory burdens continue to remain challenges for firm growth of the industrial sector in the country as such. This is the major problem we have to talk about. So why, in spite of all these also, why are we not able to get this? These are the things. Electricity, high prices, high unit labor cost, then you also have labor regulations and political interference also. Okay. Then you call about something called as industrial systems. That is, they are made up of input, process, and output. The input is raw materials, labor, land, power, and infrastructure. Then the process is the plan. The manufacturer has to how to turn the raw materials into finished products. Then you have the industrial clusters. What is an industrial cluster is that when many industries are located close to each other and share the benefits of their growth. These are the major industrial clusters. Remember these names. Mumbai Pune cluster, Bangalore Tamil Nadu region, Hooghly region. Then you have Ahmedabad Baroda region, Chota Nagpur industrial belt, Vishakhapatnam Guntur belt, Gurgaon, Delhi, and Meerut. These are all called as the industrial clusters. Then you have Kollam, Thiruvananthapuram industrial cluster also. So what are the important resources that are available in each of these? These are all the things we will be talking about. Okay, but I want to go for the other one. I will show you what are the industrial problems we will be facing as such. Okay, I will go to the other one. One second. What are the industrial problems we are facing today? With that, I can wind up this particular topic. Then next week we can go for other chapter. Is it clear with regard to industry? So what are the important challenges that we are facing today? The first one we talk about is this is coming. Changing compliance, regulations, and traceability. That means always whenever rules and regulations are changed, the manufacturers are always frightened because they have to comply with the new rules and regulations. So sometimes what happens is that they will try to find out a shortcut for it, but they are done for the good of the for the country, for the people, and as such. But these people, they try to find shortcuts. This is the major problem. They don't comply with the rules and regulations. Instead, they find a shortcut by which they need not follow the rules and the regulations. This is the major problem that we face in our country. So, for example, if you take the quality control or proper waste management, compliance standards need to exist. The major problem that we face in our country is waste management. What is waste management? Come on, children. What do you mean by waste management? No?
Recycling or reuse of the waste.
Very good. Actually, every industry will be generating some amount of waste. But how do you try to send the waste outside is very important. That means you have certain processes called as physical process, chemical processes, and then you have to dump the waste. Just like that, you cannot dump the waste, because if you dump the waste like that, okay, if you dump the waste like that, what happens is that it will cause a problem to the water bodies or to the environment or to the surroundings as such. So there should be a proper standard and they should comply with that. So manufacturers are also tasked with tracking the compliance as well, whether they are following or not. This means they have to go through the entire supply chain to check for compliance, right from vendors to the end product that's sent to the customer. So whether you are doing it properly or not. So one is the waste management, the other one is the quality control, whether you are maintaining your quality of the product or not. Next one is relevance. As technology evolves, the rate of innovation also increases. But this also means companies have to rush, that can lead to all kinds of temptations. The urge to skip or step or avoid certain tests can be hard to resist when the goal is to market the product as soon as possible. So when technology comes, innovation has to be increased. But if innovation, all these things, if they are doing, there is a lot of wastage of time by which they cannot sell the products. But the thing is that the businesses cannot do this. So innovation management becomes a must in these situations. Preferences change by the day, and any delay in delivering appropriate solutions can mean the end of everything. That means the industries have to have always to know what are the changes that are taking place, adapt to the changes, and see that they are following the changes also. If they can't do that, then it becomes a problem. Shailja, time is over, I think.
Yeah, Shamla, shall we meet again, or you'll continue next class?
We continue in the next class.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, only little is there. Then after that,